Hey everyone, welcome to the 331st episode of Just Shoot It, a podcast about filmmaking, screenwriting, and directing. This episode is brought to you by patron Marcus Helliker. I'm Oren Kaplan.
And I'm Matt Enlow. Today we're talking to Jeanette Godoy. She's an awesome filmmaker who's got a new feature out, available to stream, called Diamond in the Rough. We talked to her about her journey from starting as a prominent choreographer all the way into a Cannes award-winning commercial director and now a television and feature director. So we've seen some twists and turns in her career. She brings all of that experience into this new film. Diamond in the Rough is available on Creator Plus now if you want to check it out.
Pretty awesome talking to her. She did choreograph Baby's Got Back, one of the coolest videos of the time. She's awesome. She's got a great story and she's got a great point of view. And she's also a parent like us, which, you know, the second you become a parent, you like talking to other parents. You're no longer talking to a person that like eats, lives, and breathes filmmaking and hustling all the time. You're talking to someone who has like two priorities in their life.
They're eating and breathing filmmaking, but it's standing over the kitchen sink in between naps.
Well, before we hop in with Jeanette, I had two updates. One, I'm working on a job for Marriott Hotels. And did you know that it's pronounced Marriott, not Marriott? It's been a really hard adjustment, but in case you've ever wondered, I've been pronouncing it the wrong way my entire life.
I have a little bit of a pet peeve, not about Marriott. As a freelance director or even agency side, entering a corporate atmosphere, part of the job as an advertiser is kind of like wading through all of the internal baggage of whatever the brand speak is, you know, like these people are just thinking about their branding so intensely and frankly for so long that like any baby step outside of that brand guidebook can just sounds like sacrilege. But it drives me nuts when people can't take a step outside of their company for a second and realize that like, oh, every friggin' person in the whole world says Marriott. Just say Marriott. You're going to be like, oh, on set, like, oh, yeah, I've got this cool podcast. They're going to listen to this episode and they're going to write down my name and be like, make sure to never work with this guy ever again. I'm being facetious. No,
they all know that everyone pronounces it. But when they say Marriott, I was like,
but there are instances where people don't hear themselves anymore. They're just kind of, they've been drinking the Kool-Aid. They're living on the Kool-Aid. And that can drive me a little nuts.
Do you know who Travis White is? Does that name ring a bell to you?
Is he the Blink-182?
That's
drummer?
Travis Barker, but that was a good guess. No, he's one of our listeners, and he emailed me about sending me a poster. Did he email you?
No. Travis?
I think maybe I have like, he feels closer to me because he's asked me about VFX things in the past, and I've responded to him.
Fair enough. Sure. Yeah.
He was like, hey, I want to send you something. I don't want to tell you what it is.
Travis, I'm teasing. I'm giving you a hard time. It's okay to send Oren stuff.
And I'm like, absolutely not going to get, by the way, he emailed me from a different email address too. I'm like, I don't know if I'm 100% sure who you are. And I'm not going to give someone my mailing address for them to send me a mystery box. And then he's like, okay, fine. I'll tell you what it is. And he hand makes these movie posters. He has a store on Etsy. It's called Wall of Words Art. He takes the text from a screenplay, writes it out by hand, the entire screenplay on a poster board. And in the text, he makes like these movie posters.
That sounds very cool. The deep sighs, because before I was joking about how I'm annoyed, and now I'm obviously annoyed because of the two of us, one of us clearly would like that more than the other, Travis.
So he had written out the entire first Avengers movie. He's like, it's a 160-page script. He like makes the movie posters out of the text. Wall of Words Art on Etsy. And yeah, it's really cool. And he's done a few different movies. I think he keeps on doing more. He has like a Friday the 13th, Jason Voorhees one, Avengers, Walking Dead. But check out his stuff. It's really cool. And he does prints also. If you're into screenwriting or movies or where the two intersect quite literally, you should check out his stuff, Wall of Words Art.
These are legitimately cool.
Anyhow, if you'd like to support us, you can go to patreon.com/justshootitpod. Give us $1 a month, $2 a month. Our new patron this month, Marcus Helliker, he was part of the editing team on Come On, a movie that I worked on as well. It's awesome to know that we work with people and somehow they find the podcast and they listen to it. Anyway, for $15 a month, you can get a Just Shoot It podcast hat. And I went to a director hang last night, and quite a few people at that hang were like, I would love one of those hats. And I told them I would consider giving them a deal. So they're popular. Famous directors, TV directors, film directors, all directors need a Just Shoot It hat, something that will protect your face from the sun and also remind you that you should just shoot that thing that you've been meaning to shoot. Okay, patreon.com/justshootitpod. Now, let's talk to Jeanette. Hey, Jeanette Godoy, thanks for joining us on the podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me.
You're a director. You have a movie.
Currently out. It premiered June 29th.
And where can people watch it?
So it's a new streaming platform called Creator Plus. The great thing about it is that you don't need to have a subscription. It's sort of a one-off. You can just get the movie, rent it. It's got a bunch of features if you watch it on your phone. It's exciting to be the first movie on the platform. It's kind of a big deal.
That's very exciting. Yeah.
I want to talk about that, but also you are a very famous choreographer.
I wouldn't say I was very famous. I did do a very famous music video.
You can name like 2 choreographers, and you're one of them. So,
All right. That makes me feel better. My famous video was Baby Got Back.
That's like as famous as music videos get.
It's pretty crazy.
That's wild.
yeah. When you guys made it, did you realize it was going to be
Not
such
at
a hit?
all. I mean,
Mhm.
I thought it was a hilarious song. I thought it was I loved the music, aspect of it. I thought it was great. It was great to dance to. It was great to
Pun
make up
intended.
choreography to. And I just thought the song was brilliant. But of course, had no idea. Who knew that the video was just going to be so scandalous? I mean, at that time, they wouldn't even air it on MTV until after 10 p.m., which, when you look at music videos now, which PS MTV
Sure.
doesn't even air music videos anymore. But I mean, when you see them now, you're like, wow, that was tame comparatively. But it was pretty scandalous at the time.
And so, how did you get into music video choreography?
Yeah,
Were you living in LA?
Came out here I grew up in Pomona and Riverside. I went to school at UCLA. I was working at a law firm the whole time that I was going to school to help pay for my tuition. The lawyers just were like, don't do this if this is not what you love. Like you can't do this. It's just too intense. So I decided to pursue dance. I auditioned for a dance agent. I started auditioning for dance jobs. I booked some stuff. I didn't book most of the stuff. I was terrible at auditioning, it turns out. But I had always wanted to be a choreographer. I always made up dances since I was a little kid. Early in my career, I just thought this is actually what I want to do. And I started, reaching out to producers and saying, hire me, I'll do it for free. I need to build a reel, just like directors do. You have to start just creating your own work and your own reel.
So nowadays, I imagine like a lot of choreographers are, I'm assuming, discovered on like Instagram and TikTok and those places.
Yeah, absolutely.
I am curious, having worked with choreographers only a handful of times, about the difference in skill sets between just kind of classically trained dancers and choreographers, right? Because just because you're a great football player doesn't mean that you're a great coach, right? Or that you know how to coach, more importantly. And we'll get into the directing stuff soon. But I'm just curious of what are the finer points of the 2 positions, basically?
The main skill is, you have to be able to communicate with people what it is you're trying to do. I feel like as a trained dancer, I can do the moves. I can show them the moves. Like you're literally training them what to do. For film, it's just a different space. You're collaborating with the director. You're looking at the shot. You're figuring out what the needs are, how close the camera's going to be, where the camera's going to move, et cetera. And that's just something I picked up just by being on set, being a dancer on set, watching and paying attention, similarly to learning how to direct.
If there's a director listening that wants to do a musical or wants to do a music video with some choreography, good choreography that is, choreographed by a real choreographer, what should they do to prepare for like that first meeting with the choreographer? When you were a choreographer, what was your favorite type of input to get from a director?
Do what you want. Do what you want. I mean, no, certainly, I mean, people have always come with footage from things that they've seen or, old movies or other music videos or this style and looking for this style, kind of thing. And then definitely it's about the song. Like, what's the music? It's like Baby Got Back. I kind of had to choreograph what the music was telling me to do. Like that there's also that,
So you have to choreograph butts, Yeah.
I mean, don't you though?
Right.
Yeah. I mean, yes.
Uh,
Right.
but I look at a movie
Mhm.
like La La Land or something, where the choreography, they have the whole dance sequence on the freeway. I do wonder, like, how do you start imagining that? Like, do you just sit down, like, blue sky time, you and the choreographer, and you're like, hey, this is our location, and this is the type of ways we can move our camera. How do we take advantage of that? What's step one
I mean,
from the
I think
director's point of view?
it's the playtime with the choreographer to see even before they're designing the shots. It's like, okay, well, what can we do? I want to see, I'd love to go down this hall and end up in, or we want to jump on the car and I want to be up there. So it's the music. It's like, what kind of music are they composing for the scene? It's going to dictate the movement, but also what can they do? I mean, it depends on how the director works, but I feel like a choreographer is going, we could hop up on the cars, and then he can flip and go around the back end, slide down, jump up on the next car, and then and then the director is designing their shots around that, or vice versa. I mean, it just depends. Really depends on the project. A lot of directors don't really know how to talk to someone about choreography. That's kind of the beautiful thing about being a choreographer. It's like you have so much input usually into what you're doing because you're the expert. You're the legit expert.
I did a big flash mob with Alan where we were dancing all over the Gilmore Girls town. We danced across.
That's
Yeah.
fun.
Everyone just kind of has to pull from whatever their skill sets are, right? So, like, I had a decent amount of music training growing up and zero dance. So, I really kind of relied on my abilities to, speak through character and camera and then use the music as a way of sort of facilitating that, or at least figuring out timing and transitions and things like that. And then I found it really fulfilling, actually. I really, really loved it. Maybe the best part is like getting to work with different craftspeople who are experts, right? To your point, Jeanette, it's like, oh, these people are way, way, way more knowledgeable than you can afford to be. And so you get to be inspired by them and, collaborate with them, and they'll come up with things that, you don't even have the vocabulary to articulate. Adding a new person to that team, to that arsenal of artists is so fun. Yeah, it's super fun. It's like working with stunt people. There's like a handful of craftspeople that like the project really has to require them to be part of the budget, frankly. Do you know what I mean?
And like the stunt people, I guess when I worked with them, a lot of times they'll be like, this will look really good from this angle. Did you ever do that as a choreographer?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the thing too that's interesting, which is similar to stunts, is like not just the angle. It's like what can you do with the camera where it is, like where the camera's living, right? Like how close can you get in your movement, the extension of your arms and all of that, and turning and legs and big, developes around. It depends on every project and what the possibilities are, how it's going to be cut together. And
I guess maybe the big advantage for a choreographer is that you can just show everyone the move you're thinking of. And with stunt people, sometimes they'll do that. And I'm like, please don't. I don't want you to hurt yourself. Like, don't do a front flip in front of everyone, please.
For instance, in Baby Got Back, the dancers were on this small podium. And initially, they wanted the podium to turn while they were dancing. And the dancers were in these massive, massive stiletto heels. So then I had to really tame the movement down because I didn't want to fall. They're spinning, so I don't want them to fall. I don't want them to break their ankles, et cetera. So there was a lot of movement we had to do just in place. And then we would do a few takes where they put on combat boots and then they could really, really move. Sorry, guys, my headphones keep falling out.
Okay, so you're the choreographer. You do Sir Mix-a-Lot. You're like, this shit is too easy. I need to be directing.
There were a few years in between there where I had children, I raised children, etc. So I did also do costumes for a long time after I did choreography. It was just a weird, easy transition so I would always help the costume designer with the costumes, what the dancers should wear, what's appropriate, how will they be able to move in this. And then I had jobs where producers would call and say, you were so helpful with the costumes. Like, we have this gig, this music video, but we have no dancers. Like, would you want to do the costumes? And I was like, yeah, why not? Like, I'm always wanting to learn every aspect of everything that I can. So I did costumes for a while as well, like both together. And I worked with some really great directors in the commercial field, mainly, who were like, this is your thing. Like, you should be directing.
How did they realize that you should be directing?
I'm super collaborative. I like to have people's back. Like to see the big picture. I worked with directors like at Anonymous Content and places like that where they sort of gave me free reign with the look, like the full look. So if I was going this direction with the costumes, then I would say we should tell the production designer that the background should be this, or, back and forth between that kind of a thing. And
can I tell you that I love that when like the production designer is like, hey, like, let me talk to costumes because like this wall is going to be, and I know it's like,
doesn't happen all the time.
Obvious, but I don't know about you guys, but I've worked on so many jobs where I have to like either force them to talk to each other or
do you think that's a symptom of shrinking budgets though?
Yeah.
Like I kind of had always thought like, oh, it's just because everyone is always like prepping something and shooting something and wrapping something all at once always. And that they would love to do that, but they just don't have the bandwidth.
I think it's that. I mean, I guess something kind of related to shrinking budgets is sometimes working with newer people. And I think maybe sometimes costumes doesn't want to be in the hierarchy under art, And if the production designer's like, hey, you better not get anything green because we're shooting on green screen, costume designer will be like, don't tell me what to do.
I mean, personally, I think it's incumbent on the director, really, right?
Sure.
I mean, that's the director's vision and
to facilitate that discussion
and what the director wants. And they certainly should be having that conversation as a team. I think like the production designer, the costume designer, the cinematographer, the director, like that's the core of what your look is going to be, whether it's just a super stylized or just like a simple, docu-style thing. You're still trying to make it all sort of cohesive.
No, absolutely. It's funny, just in thinking about the way that my style has changed over the years. I feel like there was a period of time where I was a little too dictatorial, where it was just like, I want it to be this, this, and this. Here's the swipe. Here's the Amazon link. Thank you very much. And not only does it sort of eliminate the opportunity for people to throw in their own ideas, it also teaches them not to pitch in the first place. Do you know what I mean? They just kind of check out, and because they've got enough stuff on their plate, they end up doing other things anyway. And I think that the more you facilitate their involvement and their opportunity to take over the whole look, the more empowered they are to be like, hey, maybe I should let production or art know X, Y, or Z is happening, or talk to the DP about the way that it's, how are they lighting it? Like all of that stuff, which makes complete sense that it kind of snowballs into just actually directing it, right? Because you do either you cross a line where it's like, well, if you're making all of these decisions and you're communicating with all of the different stakeholders, then what is the director doing, right? And
okay, so you mastered choreography and costumes. What's the next step? Were you making like shorts or anything during this time?
I wasn't. I was working and raising twin girls and 2 stepsons. And it was just something that I knew that down the line I really wanted to pursue. And I really did think I would start in music videos. And I met with a couple of music companies, and, the budget that by that point had gone down to literally nothing. And since
when you say literally nothing, that you mean like $1,000, right?
Yeah.
Like something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
But sometimes actually literally $0. Do you want to do it?
Oh, right. We'll give you the privilege of shooting this.
Yeah.
Taking this song. Exactly.
Right.
So I decided to start with a commercial instead. And I got a script from a couple of creatives at the Richards Group, and it had been up for their Super Bowl spot. Because I had worked with them as a stylist, they sort of knew me and what my point of view was. And one of the creatives was like, what I remember about you is how you argued with me about how the woman should wear this jacket in this scene, which we didn't think she should. And you explained the whole backstory of why she needed to wear this jacket, which I would kind of go there in those kind of circumstances, just creatively. And he said, so, I just knew that you had a point of view. And so they gave me the script. It was really broadly comedic, much more broad than I was intending to go at that point. So we sort of rewrote it tonally.
Wait, can I take a step back for a second?
Yeah.
You have this pretty cool choreography resume. Now you're doing costumes on commercials and music videos and all sorts of things. And you're like, I want to start working on my directing reel. so that people will hire me as a director, because I think people have told me they think I would be a good director. Do you say like, okay, I'm going to make a spec commercial? That's like your first idea?
Yes.
Or someone says you got to get a reel, shoot some specs. And so then you approach some people that you worked with before and you say, hey, do you guys have any scripts I could direct? Is that kind of the move?
Exactly that.
And
It was exactly that.
and they said, yeah. Like you approached agency copywriters. Is that true?
Did they get
Yeah.
anything out of it?
Yeah.
Right? Like they give you the scripts. Is there anything reciprocal of like, oh, and now I loved this spot and maybe I can use this as a resume piece? Is that part of their thinking for saying yes to giving you the copy?
I think they wanted to help me out, number one. It was a pretty epic spot, to be honest with you. And I think they wanted to see it come to light. Like it was up for the last 2 spots for the Super Bowl for Bridgestone tires. And the other one won out, and this was theirs, and
Gotcha.
they really
So just the
loved it.
edification of seeing it
So
become something. Yeah. Fair. Yeah.
I think so, yeah.
Someone care about it. But
Yeah.
so on that note of it being an epic spot, were you like, hey, I'm going to put $10,000 of my own money, or I'm going to put 5,000 or 15? Like, how do you start thinking about the budget? And like, because I mean, I've wanted to shoot spec things all the time, and I'm all like, how can I shoot this for free? And then I'll come up with an idea, and this would be awesome, except we need to rent this specific car or get a permit for this thing. So tell us a little bit about like how you approach the, like which spot like the production of it.
Well, I just, I didn't go to film school, right? So I never spent that money. This was going to be the first thing I was going to direct. And I just felt like out of the gate, this is going to have to be good. And I'd been working at that level in commercials and music videos with those kinds of directors. So I just, my husband and I just made the decision, like, we're going to invest in this spot to start my career. And it went to Cannes. Like it did do what I wanted it to do. Because it's an epic spot. A kid grows up through the commercial. And we shot it like one day in March, and then we shot it again in June. Actually, the creatives came out from Texas for one of the shoot days because they wanted to be a part of it. They saw like the initial footage that I had shot, and they loved it so much, so they wanted to be a part of the shoot. And it was a huge calling card for me. And I wasn't a kid. I wasn't fresh out of film school, so I just knew that if I was gonna do it, I had to come out. Had to be willing to.
So you don't have to say
a
number, but you're saying that it was a significant amount of money, basically.
Well, it was partially shot on film, so let's start there. That was still happening a little bit because I wanted it to be big, because I wanted it to be epic. I just knew I had to make the investment, and I was doing tons of costuming jobs and just like saving my money to put toward it, and that's what I did.
Well, if a new filmmaker came to you and said, hey, I want to get into commercials, would you recommend to them that they go all out on their first commercial they direct? I guess I feel like the thing we hear a lot is like, oh, the first thing I made was not good. So I'm like, I wish I would have not spent a lot of money on the first few things. I mean, it sounds like you made something.
It's not a apples to apples thing though, right? Because you had been making things for years at this point, even though you weren't the quote unquote director. Right. You had seen how creative went from an idea to execution many, 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 many times. So you felt basically safer to make that bet on yourself. Whereas like if you had just come out of film school and like done a few shorts or something like that, that might not be as smart a bet, basically.
Look, I mean, people come out of film school and make amazing things, right? As well. And
technically that is true.
I just, what I mean is that, I was starting in my 40s, you guys. Like, I didn't have time to go, let me just do a scene with 2 people sitting at a table. Like, I didn't feel like I had time for that,
I guess I don't want to put words in Oren's mouth, but I'm saying if I were going to bet, say, $20,000 on a person making a good first commercial, I would one without a doubt go for the professional in their 40s than any film student, even if they seemed like a fucking genius, I guess is what I'm saying.
Also, I knew the world. Like you're saying, I knew the commercial world. These creatives were top level creatives they were making Super Bowl spots. Like, so I had to
Mhm.
step up to that plate. They were giving me a great script and it was an epic script. And I just decided I want to do it. Now, did really well, it won a bunch of awards, it like got me a ton of attention. What it also got me was creatives that I met afterward telling me, well, if you just had 6 more spots like
Sure.
that on your reel,
Mhm.
you'd be working all the time.
So that is the
Right.
question. You got a lot of great attention. Did it lead to additional work?
I got jobs out of it for sure, and pretty quickly. Yeah, I got some commercial work pretty quickly, but not a ton.
To get that work, like, were you sending it to production companies or producers or just sharing things? How
Mhm.
did
I got signed right away because the spot went to Cannes and it was like in Shoot Magazine, all this stuff, shots, like it got a lot of
how did you get
attention.
it to Cannes? Did you submit it?
Yeah, I
Because it
submitted
was on
it.
spec, right? Like, the Bridgestone
Mhm.
had nothing to do with it.
Right.
Did you try to get them to buy it? Which is a question we used to get a lot. We actually haven't gotten it for a while, but like, hey, I'm going to make a spec ad for Nike and hopefully they'll buy it. Was that ever like part of what you were hoping for?
I mean, it was my dream, but it put the creatives in a little bit of a sticky situation because it was like they were making these half a
Mhm.
million dollar Super Bowl spots, right? And then here I was just coming along with my little, $20,000 spec that really probably should have been half a million dollars. And that would be weird for them. Like, why are they spending so much money on their other spots? It was talked about, definitely. And then it was just kind of like, it was a little bit politically incorrect for them. So
So that's awesome. So you go to and you get signed. What's the company that you signed with?
I signed with Harpoon Pictures out of New York. They took me on a sales trip to Chicago. I met tons of creatives, did a bunch of showcases and stuff. But again, this is one thing I would say to people who are just starting. I mean, you can get a career off of one spot, but
Mhm.
not usually, right? You need to have a few more. So that was my naivete that I didn't realize that I really needed like that spot and maybe 2 or 3 other at least
Mhm. Mhm.
good ones,
Right. Because
They didn't
Harpoon is
maybe have
trying
to
to
be as
pitch you, right? And they're like,
right.
here's her spot. And they're like, what else does she have? And they're like, that's
Yeah,
it.
exactly, exactly. But they did get me some work, so that was cool. But, still at that time, it was like there weren't very many female
Mhm.
directors working in commercials. So it was really rare to see them.
How did you transition to the more narrative stuff? Do you still do commercials now? You're kind
Uh-huh.
of bounce back and forth?
Yeah, yeah, I do. Just as my girls were getting older, I just wanted to keep expanding creatively. I wrote and directed a short film called Disconnected, and that got me into the Sony TV directing program. I also made a documentary about dancers who have Down syndrome, and that led me to some more docu-style work for like Bumble. I created a little series for Bumble called Pure Corazon about Latinx daters. And so I was like, okay, my kids are older. I can, take on more responsibility. I can like let the creative, you know,
Mhm.
evolution continue because it's tough as a mom.
Sure. Yeah.
You guys know your parents.
And I want to get back to that because I think that's really valuable for listeners at home. But I am hearing kind of an interesting eclecticism that I want to dig in on a tiny bit too, right? You said you shot commercials, a short film, you created a web series that sounds like maybe it's a little like docu reality style, and then also did a straight documentary. That's a lot of different things all happening at
Mhm.
once. And this Bridgestone piece, was it tonally in tune with the other body of work or like
Yeah, because I love everything. I love so many things, right? And I don't, even though, like, you guys know my husband, he always says you have to be in, you have to put
sure,
yourself in a
Right.
box. You have to
Right.
be
but it
one
helps
thing.
when you're a
Um,
person who
no,
mostly likes and has a skill set in that one box. Do you know what I mean? That's easy to say if you're an action movie junkie who was a stuntman before, you know?
I know Jordan talks about like, are you a comedy director? Are you a,
mhm.
cars director or kids or whatever? But I do feel like just from looking at your work, like even though it is docu-style or documentary and comedy and branded series with real people, they all, from what I can see, seem to kind of center around relationships in a way. And I know, I know all stories are about relationships, but kind of you have a lot of like romantic relationships, which, obviously your latest film is a romantic comedy.
Hmm.
And so even though you're working in all these different mediums, there does seem to be like some sort of like kind of commonality between them, like kind of stories with heart, even like in the commercial work and stuff.
I think there's some
Hmm.
intimacy to it all. It's like, and that's one of the things that I do like about docu storytelling. And I just came off of a really big project where I traveled to, 5 different states, working for the CDC, and I, I really am genuinely interested in people and relationships, and so I like there to be an intimacy to my work, whether it's comedic or it's deep stories of what's going on in their real lives. Like I just I'm just fascinated by people. So
That's your
I
through
think,
line.
yeah, there
Yeah.
is that. But I mean, I don't, the docu stuff sort of came up just randomly, to be honest with you. I was at a dance recital for one of my daughters, and before her class performed, this group came on, and their instructor came out and she said, this is the first time we're performing here, and it was a group of dancers who had Down syndrome. And I had never seen anything like that in my life. Like, I didn't have any experience with anyone with Down syndrome, but I was a dancer too. And I could just see the joy that they felt being out there on stage. And I just said, I have to do something. I have to do something with this. I don't know what it is, but I want to know these dancers and I want to do something with this group. And that's how I ended up making that documentary.
That's amazing. I mean, your story is really inspirational. I mean, I feel like the way you tell it about like being in your 40s and having to have like that first thing be like a hit. It's like a lot of pressure probably on a person. Like I'm sure we have a lot of listeners in their 40s that are like, oh, it's probably too late. I mean, we literally
Mhm.
get emails from 25-year-olds saying like, is it too late? Like I went to film school, but then I like worked for an insurance company. I don't know if I still have time. And we're like, yes, you idiot. You can still do it. But it's like super inspirational, I think, and especially the fact that you're making movies for, streamers and you directed TV, right? Also,
I just did my first episode last year for the Garcias on HBO Max.
There are a lot of overlapping skills between short form and documentary and long form scripted, but there's also, I imagine, a little bit of a learning curve. What was surprising about doing
Oh,
television and film that maybe your short form career hadn't totally prepared you for?
mm, I mean, just how long the projects go for. I mean, the movie, which is completely truncated schedule compared to most people's experience in movies, right? But I mean, I was working on it for 8 months.
how many shoot days?
15. It's intense. I don't know that I would have been able to pull it off as well as I feel that I did. And that's not to say there aren't a million things I wish I would have done differently, the way we all do after projects are complete. Had I not been in this business for so long, doing every kind of job under the sun in choreography and as a stylist and then as a director, it's been my on-set film school, for all these years.
But still, you're shooting like 30 seconds a day or maybe like a 3-minute music video a day. And now you have to shoot like 5
Well,
minutes of
I do
footage a day,
say
right?
the thing that film school tends to not teach you are the fundamentals of like decision making and being cool under
Mm.
pressure and understanding the politics of a space or the ramifications of decisions. Like that's the thing that film school just doesn't teach you at all, basically, because everything's in such a structured environment. The stakes are so low, even if you think they're high. Like that thesis shoot, people shoot on weekends, for like 6 weeks or whatever. Do you know what I mean? It's just not the same as like shooting a feature in 3 consecutive weeks without breaks or sleep or any of so that battle testing, the training doesn't really kind of come into play as much.
I think the thing that really has helped me both in the TV space and even doing the movie with a new studio overseeing it or producing it, I should say, is working in commercials. I mean, people don't understand, when you
Mhm.
work with Nike, there's a lot of people you have to answer to, and it's a very intense environment and you have to stay on brand and tonally you have to stay where the brand is. And there are a lot of people you have to collaborate
Mhm.
to get what you want as well. And even
Yeah.
though,
And by the
we
way, if
know
you love a take, you can't just go on to the next shot, right? Like you have to have 7
that's
people
right.
say that they
Half
approve
of
it.
them were on their phones and
That's
they're
right.
asking for playback.
In TV,
Yeah.
it's similar, right? I mean, we know that TV is the writer's medium. And so in TV, you get your you have to go in and do your episode and it tonally has
Mhm.
to match the rest of the series, obviously. Again, to me, that feels very similar
Mhm.
to the advertising space. Like we're trying to stay on brand for the show. And then you're dealing with a group of writers or a showrunner. Again, you're bringing your take to it, but then it's their sign off. This is their project that they've been creating for could be years.
I will say that the main difference, and I have not really directed TV, so I could be wrong about this, but it seems to me like the main difference is the showrunner has an idea of how production works and really wants the show to be good. They want to win awards. They want to get a second season. They want people to love the show. In advertising, they tend to have no idea how production works. The things that they care about are the least important things. Like they care so much more about what shoes someone wears than like if their line of dialogue makes sense. And we are never going to see the shoes. Okay. So it doesn't matter what shoes they wear. And they just care so much. I mean,
Sure.
primarily about
Yeah,
what their
yeah.
boss is going to think, right? They're covering their ass, but also like what the marketing message is. And it will always trump what the story is, To me, at least in TV, hopefully you're
Mhm.
aligned
Right.
in the goal, even maybe if you disagree on how to get there. But anyway, sorry.
No, that's very true. I mean, it is how do you work with people? How do you work with people
Mhm.
who are bringing the bag of money to your project? How do
Hmm.
you diplomatically get what you want out of it as well? So those are things like I don't know that I would have been super great at that when I
Hmm.
was a 25-year
Hmm.
old choreographer, just like traveling around the world. Like I know what I'm doing. Like you don't know how to
Yeah.
dance like I dance. And I don't know.
Telling directors that she better wear the fucking jacket or I'm
If you
walking.
understood the character like I do, you'd know.
So let's go to Diamond in the Rough. So this is your first feature, right?
Yes.
And how did you get it?
So my agents brought me the script. It happened very, very fast. Literally, I had just gotten back from directing the Garcias in Mexico, and I was
Wow.
pitching on a couple of movies.
And your agents is that APA?
Uh-huh.
Do you tell them like, hey, I'm looking for this type of script or anything? Or they're just like constantly trying to find material for you and sending you scripts?
Yeah, it's been sort of mostly constantly trying to find material for me because I've pitched on
Hmm.
just a wide variety of things.
And when they send you a script, does that mean that the person that wrote the script knows you're reading it? Or is it like, hey, here's
Yes.
a script. If you like it, we'll get you a meeting?
No, it's usually the production company is sending
Mhm.
me the script, through my agent. My agent submits me, and then if they like my work, then they'll give me the script to read. It's sort of how it was.
So you know that they're already kind of interested in you when you're reading the script.
Yeah, yeah, because you have to put in the whole pitch. That's you guys know that whole amount of free work that
Sure.
we do to try to get jobs.
Yeah. I haven't pitched that. I pitched maybe on like 2 or 3 movies. I mean, I guess I pitched like years ago, but I'm curious, what's harder, pitching on a feature or on a commercial? Like doing a commercial treatment or a feature pitch?
Ooh, I have a really
Mm.
hard time with commercial treatments. I
Yeah.
really
Welcome
do.
to everybody.
I really do. I have tantrums about it.
We all do. We need a
Because
band
it's just
together.
like, I just come on, don't
Sure.
make me write 25 pages about a 30-second spot. It's making me crazy. It's just and I'm really not a bullshitter. That's one of my biggest problems is that I really just come straight out with how I want to approach it. This is what I think it should be. And that, here's what I'm going to do. I just don't want to. It just makes me crazy when I'm told you have to add more. I'm just like, what is there
Yeah.
to add? What do
And
you
then,
want me to like?
yeah. One time
Mm.
I ended up getting the job, but they were like, the other director that they really liked wrote about the like complementary colors and what they mean. And I'm like, okay, so do you want me to add a page to my treatment that's about color science? Like, couldn't
Well, it
hurt.
could if you think of it as time I'm spending. It hurts me.
But are you coming to pitch with visuals? Are you making a deck? Are you playing the Garden State soundtrack as you talk out loud about how you would
No,
block
I
these
have.
scenes?
I've done a variety of things. Like sometimes my agents have said, "Don't make a deck yet. Like see
Mhm.
how the call goes. Like how do you feel about it?"
So you have a call just like a commercial. You'll have like an intro call.
You read the script and then you get on with the studio or the the
The
producers,
producers.
whoever, and just go through your ideas. I mean, it's very similar to the commercial space. And then if I feel like it went great, then I'll do a deck and I'll offer it up.
Sure.
Which of course they're waiting for you to anyway. But for Diamond, I did one before I started because I wanted the
Mhm.
movie. Like I wanted it. I read the script. I read the script on Monday. I was pitching on Wednesday, and I wanted this movie more than any of the other ones that I had been, pitching on. So I came in with a deck and I shared it on the Zoom.
What was the thing that you fell in love with in the script that made you want it?
Well, I mean, two things. One is a
Mhm.
Latina-led rom-com, okay? And that's just a rarity in this, in the world of cinema. Like you just don't see it. And it's a Latina who's, you know, not it's not immigrant porn, it's not narco porn. It's just a messy Gen Z young woman at
And it's not
a
J Lo.
difficult time of her life. And yeah, and it's not J Lo, and it was smart, and it was funny, and it was crass, and it was all the things that we don't get to see ourselves
Sure.
like that. We just don't. So that part of it I loved, and it was really well written. Like from the get go, it was really well written. Even though I worked on a director's pass as well, but like I loved it from the get go.
Also,
So
they're
I
just not
really
making that
wanted it.
many like comedies or rom-coms, period, anymore. You know what I mean? The number of those, if like that's the
Hmm.
thing that you want to be doing, there aren't that many shots. So you're like, this is the one, I'm going for it. So you went ahead, you said, you made the deck
Hmm.
already. Is that something you were like, hey, everyone, like, I got a little zealous. Take a look at the deck. I'd love to send it along at the end of the call. Like walk us through that how it was different, basically.
I was sort of had it,
Hmm.
ready to go on my computer and was like, let me share the screen. Like, let me show you what I was thinking. And so they were, they were pretty excited about
And
it
you're
and
pitching
liked my
remotely.
ideas.
You
So
weren't in the room.
I didn't do any writing though.
Oh,
It was
that's
a
nice.
purely
That's
a
nice.
visual deck.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm-mm. It was on Zoom.
What's in the
Yeah.
deck? What do you include
It
in
was
this
just,
in your deck?
I just included, just straight visuals. I did no writing for it.
Right,
It
but
was just
what are
kind
the
of like
visuals? Are you
beautiful,
like,
really.
this is the world, these are the characters, this is
The
the
world,
sequence?
not s the world,
Hmm.
the lead character, Ariana Alvarez, like, ideas of who she could be,
Like
and
casting
definitely
ideas?
well, I mean, I didn't specifically have a casting page, but I used a couple of, like, leading Latina Gen Z actresses in scenes where it sort of felt,
Hmm.
like, germane to the movie. I did a
Mhm.
lot of, like, stylized wardrobe looks,
Mm.
obviously
A
coming from
a
that
dance
world as well.
number.
No dance
You're
number,
like,
but
"These are
we
the
we almost
dance
did one
moves."
at the end of the movie. We almost did. We didn't
You
have time
should
in our
have.
15-day shoot. In our 15-day shoot, we had no time for that.
Do you feel like, well, A, was that clear in the script, or is that something that you added? And B, is that something where you're like in the deck? Do you feel like it's a ghost to go ahead and just be like, here's Ferris Bueller, here's One Crazy Summer, here's John Hughes movies or whatever? Or do you kind of try to like make it a little bit more subtle with what you're referencing and try to find more obscure imagery that still hints at those ideas, but isn't literally screen grabs from Ferris Bueller or something?
Well, the tone was definitely was
Hmm.
feeling sort of nostalgic, right? Already. That was built into the script. And I loved the idea of a slightly nostalgic vibe, but sort of elevated and modernized. But I used no screenshots from no films in the treatment in my deck. Mm-mm.
Wait, you
Because
didn't use
anyway,
any.
There was literally nothing that made sense
Sure.
for this golf movie that wasn't
Yeah.
so old and ridiculous. You know, like it just
Yeah.
didn't.
You're like,
It just
I don't
didn't
want
make
to
sense for
Photoshop
me
in
visually.
golf clubs into their hands or whatever dumb thing.
Exactly.
So yeah. So then what did you pull? What were your references? Like besides wardrobe, like what's this is a good question. What was the first image in your deck? Like what's the title page image?
The title page is a literal close up of a golf ball in deep in grass with a beautiful sky behind it. Like just a beautiful green with the white ball, like just instantaneous. Like this is going to
That's
be
great.
pretty. This is going to be beautiful, but nothing too on the nose in terms of like specific scenes because I just couldn't find it. You guys, I mean, you know how hard it is to find images? Oh, I spend days on end.
Yeah, especially if you're trying to not show movies or, you're not.
Right.
When I pitch on commercials, I literally mostly show other commercials, which I feel like is a no-no, but I don't know.
Well, it's funny when I pitch on commercials, I mostly pull
Yeah.
from movies, but when you do movies, it feels weird to do that unless it's a really explicit pastiche, unless it's like really, really like what if.
Right. If Tarantino is pulling old Japanese or kung fu movies or something. Yeah.
Right.
You worked with Buffalo 8 on this movie, right?
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us about like how they were involved?
So they did the post. We did the post, all the finishing through Buffalo 8. So I didn't have a ton of interaction with them, to be honest, because we had an editor, freelance editor who wasn't through Buffalo 8. So I worked with her, Christine McPherson, who's amazing, by the way. And so we worked together for 3 months, at the beginning of the year. And then we did our sound mix at Buffalo 8 and they did all the finishing. They took on the distribution, but Creator Plus financed the movie.
And you shot all in LA. Obviously, I guess if you have 15 days, you're probably not bouncing around too much.
We used Calamigos Ranch to play as the country club. And then we had one day on an actual golf course because that's all we could afford. And then we also shot, in a restaurant, an office, a house kind of a thing. But mainly it was 10 days at Calamigos Ranch, just playing for so many different things.
A golf course is so crazy because the amount of money they spend on watering the golf course in one day is way more than you would ever want to pay them to shoot there, Like
insanely expensive.
So expensive.
Insanely expensive. And they're not going to shut down for a little independent movie. I mean, they're just not. Like they make so much money in fees because we shot at a private course. So, their membership fees, like, no.
Did you do any of the kind of like indie tricks of like, okay, well, we're going to, make this seem like it's a hole when in fact all of the players are just deep background and we're just on some grass or anything like that? Were there any kind of tactics for the day that helped you optimize that shoot specifically?
For the golf day specifically, we did bring in a second unit because the only one of the actresses really was a golfer. Like she actually was a really good golfer, Caitlin Carver. And then Samantha Boscarino, the lead, she was literally just learning on this movie. And we needed to have a legitimate golfer. So we brought in,
like she knew what she was doing.
Yeah. So we brought in a second unit and we had golf doubles. And actually Jordan Brady, my husband, did second unit for me, which that was fun. Really fun. And yeah. And so we would sort of, we would shoot the scenes and then send like photos of which way the ball needed to go, depending on how the actors were. And then we would jump to the next hole. We only shot on 3 holes, but we would jump to the next hole. And then they would go in with the golf doubles. And then they would do, those same shots in the same directions that we had shot it. So it was sort of this hopping over each other kind of thing the whole day.
That's so smart though. I love that.
And that was actually our only day of overtime. The entire shoot was a 10-hour days.
Yeah.
And then
oh wow,
yeah,
that's crazy.
I know.
It was shot during COVID.
Shot during COVID, yeah. But that was a 14-hour day, specifically because we were using the pro shop as well. So we had to do all of the golf and then and then,
In
go
one day.
inside. It was, you guys, it was nuts. I mean, we're shooting, it was fall,
Mhm.
it was like the light was going
Right,
down at
right, right,
4:30.
right.
Like it was a challenging shoot.
And what did you shoot on?
Yeah,
Alexa?
we shot on Alexa Minis.
Cool. And were you using I sometimes I guess if you have to go really fast, people shoot on zoom lenses and stuff. Do you guys do anything technical like that to help you move faster?
Yeah, we shot on Zooms, but I mean, the main thing was, 2 cameras. Like I had to really fight for
Hmm.
2 cameras. And I just knew that with the cast the size that we had, um, I just didn't initially I on my initial pitch, I said, we definitely have to shoot with 2 cameras to get this movie in 15 days. And then once we got into production, they were like, "Oh, it's getting too expensive," because it ended up being a union shoot and, so costs were
Mhm.
going skyrocketing. And so then they wanted to only shoot with 1 camera. And I was just like, "You guys, I don't think I can actually make this happen if 2 cameras are not
Right. And
rolling.
make it look good.
If 2 cameras are not rolling 85% of the time." Like, of course, there are some shots where you
Sure.
can't,
Does
you're
make
not
sense.
shooting with
Yeah,
2
yeah. You're
cameras
good.
'cause one's in the
An
way,
insert of
etcetera.
a
We all know
ball
that,
going
but
into the hole. It's fine. Yeah, yeah.
right, right. But, but with a cast the size that we had, like, I really just needed to have 2 cameras, so I was very lucky that in the end, they did that for me.
Yeah. Dialogue driven. Like you need to see people saying things.
You need
Um,
reactions in the moment, like, you can't it's comedy, like, you're missing these amazing beats if you don't have it, and that's actually what the TV show taught me, shooting on the Garcias with 2 cameras and an amazing, producing director, Carlos Gonzalez, who was also the DP on the show. Like, he was
oh, wow.
amazing with, teaching me really the whole 2 camera setup. Because
Give us some tricks. What did he teach you? What did you learn about two
well, I
cameras?
mean, just I had never shot with 2 cameras in
Mhm.
commercials,
Sure.
right? Like, just never. I mean, I did my short with 2 cameras, but, that was also because of time. But, just the typical shooting the wide and also getting someone's close up at the same time in the same direction, like, just those kinds of small little details, just, "Hey, you got that whole take. You got the wide and you got her reactions twice. Okay, now let's turn around." Like, it was just invaluable to have 2 cameras. Like, I don't know how we would have done it, without having 2. Also, one of the things that really saved us too was Steadicam. Like, we only got Steadicam, like, maybe 4
Hmm.
days, I think. But when we were just in these time crunches, these big scenes, and it was like, "Okay, we're running out of light. We only have the actor for another hour," whatever, just bust out the Steadicam and all props to make.
Wait, how does that help you? Because I find especially with walk and talk scenes, you have a steady cam, you're shooting a 2 shot or a 3 shot or whatever. It's really hard to find
Mhm.
coverage that cuts
Well,
with
no,
it.
this is how we're shooting it. Like, you have to commit to the
Mhm.
edit that you're not getting coverage, that it's a oneer, like, you're getting it in one take because it's just, first of all, it's so hard to you're saying, it's so hard to do the coverage and have it work. But I worked with Megan Stacy, the cinematographer on Diamond in the Rough, and she and I had also done the Bumble series together. And when it was just push
Mm.
coming to shove and we were just running out of time, um, man, that Steadicam saved us, like, so many times. We were
Because
lucky.
you could get 2 or 3 setups in one setup. Is that why?
Exactly. Like, we were gonna start on him, she was gonna come and land, they were gonna come this way, boom, scene's over. Like, that's just, you had to commit to that. It was
Uh,
scary.
Was there a moment where you were like, okay, I have 4 setups. We have 15 minutes till the sun's down. How am I going to get all 4 setups? And then, the ghost of Jeanette was like, Jeanette, you're a choreographer.
That's right.
You can do this in one. And then you were like, 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
And then you
You know
just
what? Interestingly, both
figured
the
it out.
lead women in the movie were also dancers. So they could understand beats, like, so well. So it was just like, okay, you're gonna chip the ball onto the court. The camera's gonna be behind you. As you turn for her reaction, we're gonna come around you, and you're gonna come and pick up the ball. Like, we literally were doing it like that. And
And on the
Mhm.
7 beat
it
and
was
on
that.
the
Take
11
2
beat.
beats, look back at her, let the camera move around you, then keep, like, it was that kind of thing. So it was really lucky that these actresses had dance backgrounds, I have to
Did
say.
you?
They had a real great awareness of timing with the camera.
Were there ever moments in the edit where you were like, nailed it? Or like, oh, maybe I wish we could have, maybe I should have grabbed an insert or something like that. Like the decisions in the moment felt right, but like, were they confirmed in the edit?
Mostly, yes, they were confirmed, and I have to give that to the
Mhm.
cast really, because they just could nail their performance every time. That was great. One of the things I didn't have any time to do in this movie on this shoot were like transitions, really the
Sure.
time for there
Sure.
were no time for transitions in this shoot schedule.
When you say transitions, do you mean like an establishing shot, sun goes down, we're here at
Yes.
night, or do you mean like, okay, we end on somebody putting this down and we pick up on someone lifting this up? Like,
I'm
do you mean
No, mostly establishing shots to establish the new world we were in. Those kind of transition scenes that like get us into
right?
like, oh, now we're
That pace,
yes,
they give you a break in the
yes.
movie.
That just like there was just no time for that.
I know we have to wrap up soon, but I just want to talk about your cast real quick because I know, your leads, like from what I've seen there, everyone's awesome. You have some kind of up and comers, and then you also have some just people that everyone recognizes, like a David
Mhm.
Koechner, and like I love Rizwan
Ah,
Manji from like a million things I've seen him in. I don't know if people know his name, but they definitely know his
right.
face. Was it hard to get them? Did you have to pitch them on the movie? Like, did they have to see your work to attach themselves, or is it just like a money thing?
We had a list. I mean, obviously we were going through lists and gosh, Rizwan was my first choice for Mike Reddy, that role. And yeah, they just sent it to his agent and he read the script and he jumped on board. It was like I mean, I have to say, we really, when you are on one of those projects where it all just sort of comes together in a way that just
Mhm.
works out perfectly, this is how this movie worked out
Nope.
for me. I mean, I honestly, because when I say to you, I got the script on a Monday, I read it, I pitched on the Wednesday, I got hired on Friday, I started on Monday, and there it went. Like it just
Yeah.
went.
And do you think like because it was going so fast because they had a start date and air date and
Mhm.
this and all this stuff that like it was easier to get people on board? Like Dave Keckner, hey, we need you for this day and this day.
Ye-
Yes or no?
I mean, maybe, Keckner was pretty busy.
Like the train was
So the train was
moving.
moving. We definitely had definitive dates. I mean, we did work around David Koechner and Rizwan, and their schedules. We rescheduled a lot of stuff around them. But man, I just got so lucky with the actors. I mean, Samantha Boscarino as a lead, she just came in and just nailed it for me. And we actually had one day where we shot 10 scenes, albeit they were all in a
Mhm.
house. Okay.
Sure.
They were all in one house. And we were shooting with two cameras,
It's
but
a
it
lot.
was like
It's a lot.
22 setups.
Yeah.
22. He had to be happy, be messy, cry, like be mad, like all in one day. And she just nailed it. And I mean, that's the thing when you bring these actors on, you want to make sure that they're joining you for
Mhm.
that train
Mhm.
ride that's about to take off.
Okay, if people want to check out the movie, go to creatorplus.com. It's also on streaming on VOD. It's called Diamond in the Rough. Do you have your next project lined up? You said you just shot something, right?
It's like a docu-series for the CDC. But I did pitch on a project. I can't say what it is, but and I all my fingers and toes crossed because I really want it to be a great project
Fingers
for me.
crossed.
So
When you book it and it's released, come back on the show. Tell us all about it.
I'd love to.
Yeah, if you're listening to this podcast, cross your fingers. Unless you're pitching against Jeanette,
DM her on
in which
Instagram
case,
afterwards. Yeah.
sorry, Team Jeanette.
Well, Jeanette, do you have a few more minutes to hang out and endorse with us?
Sure.
Unpaid endorsements.
Okay, so I've got a couple things. Neither are very interesting. First of all, it was Amazon Prime Day, and on Gizmodo, somewhere was like, here's the best deals. And the number one deal was this Nespresso machine.
Mm.
And so I bought it. I don't care what I'm buying as long as it's a good deal. And it's pretty awesome. Do you know how a regular coffee maker heats up water and
Mhm.
water turns into steam and then it kind of goes up and it drips through the coffee grounds that's drip coffee. But espresso, like,
Mhm.
if you have an espresso machine, not a Nespresso specific, any espresso machine, the water is like pressurized and it pushes the water really hard through the espresso grounds in it. It's just makes coffee in a different way. And so an espresso machine, unlike a Keurig machine or any one of those other pod machines, it works like an espresso machine that actually has like a laser inside, and it like heats the water really hot and it pressurizes it and gets the perfect temperature and makes pretty awesome coffee. But it also comes with this thing called the Arancino, which is the real game changer. It's like this cylinder that you put milk in, and it creates like steamed frothed milk. And it's like, it does it in like 90 seconds, and it's really delicious. And my daughter, she drinks what we call baby chinos, which is basically like a cappuccino, but without the espresso in it, and like a little vanilla. And it's like, I'm like the most popular dad in town now because I can make my own baby chinos at home in like 90 seconds. And they're actually like delicious, but also you can just throw a shot of espresso in there from the Nespresso machine, or Matt, you're allowed to use a different espresso machine if you'd like, or you can even just mix it with your percolated coffee or whatever, however you like to make your coffee.
Okay, well, I just have to comment. Can I comment that you're
Please.
already creating a bougie girl? Okay, this is gonna come back to haunt you when she's a teenager, because you've been making her these baby
Listen.
chinos, and now when they're 14, she's gonna want the $280 jeans. Like, this is I can make the direct link already. I'm telling you, you're in for it. You're in for it.
I'm literally showing her
You're
how to
in
not
for
pay
it.
for
It's what
this,
you've
but to
created.
actually get it at home for free.
Just warning you, I have $2 in college right now, so.
Other thing, I have a treatment due tomorrow, and I made my first treatment in Google Slides, which I've been avoiding forever because I feel like that's what agencies do, and they just have like 1,000 animated GIFs, and it's just so annoying. And they're always like leaving comments and notes, and I just like, it's just messy. I prefer like a PDF that's clean and quiet. But I actually worked with a treatment designer. She did the first pass, and then she just handed me the Google Doc, and it's just so easy to edit, because it's just a Google Doc. I was talking to the producer. We're looking at it together. We're changing some of the wording. I drag an image in, and he can see it instantly on the screen. It's pretty cool. I don't hate it. Anyhow, those are my two things I've been thinking about. Jeanette, what do you got?
I am currently obsessed with the Audible version of Anna Karenina, read by Maggie Gyllenhaal. It is stunning. It is stunning. I'm in love with it. But Anna Karenina has always been one of my favorite books. I've been super slow to the audiobook space because I'm just an old school person. I like to hold it in my hands.
I don't love when people do voices.
Okay, so that's the thing. That has kind of turned me off every time I've tried to get into it. And the thing about this version of Anna Karenina, Maggie Gyllenhaal, she takes a very subtle approach to the voices. Like, it's extremely subtle. You can tell it's a different character, but in the most subtle way. And it's just beautiful. Like, I'm appreciating Tolstoy on a whole other level through this version that she reads. And I'm obsessed with it. It is like something crazy, like 68 hours or something. Like, it's because, it's like an 800-page book. It's wonderful. And other books that I tried to read, to listen to, and it's multiple characters, different actors reading. I can't get into that. I find it confusing. It bothers me. This version, I have to say, stunning.
Well, that's awesome. So I realized I've got maybe the most Mad and Low endorsement of the year. Nathan Fielder has a new show on HBO Max called The Rehearsal. I love Nathan Fielder so much. This is kind of explicitly an evolution of Nathan For You in a sense. He talks about the show. It's formally very similar in that it's kind of like docu-style pieces with Nathan's voiceover kind of connecting the dots on things. It's clear that he's orchestrating the whole thing, like he is the authorial voice. But unlike it being business advice, this time around, Nathan is facilitating complicated conversations for people. In the first example, there's a guy who wants to admit something to someone he's known for a long time. And so Nathan goes to extreme efforts to fabricate the environment in which the apology is going to happen. He hires actors. He's trying to basically allow this person to rehearse and think through every single possible iteration of this conversation so that they're totally prepared for it, both emotionally but also tactically. So they can be like, okay, well, if this happens, I have a plan for it. And what makes that ultimately, at least in this first episode, special is that there's a strange emotional experience that the Nathan For You pranks more or less always lacked, for better or for worse. There are things about Nathan For You that can be kind of mean. You know, there are people who left that show unhappy about it and embarrassed. And I think his point is always that he was meant to be the butt of the joke, but people didn't always feel that way. And this show, like the punchline is always like, human beings are weird. We're worried about things for no good reason, or I don't know. It's like maybe even more complicated than that. I haven't wrapped my head around it fully, but it's a meditation on what it is to interact with other people, and like, can we control that? Is that a good idea? Should I be worried about the things I can't control? All of that stuff in a truly strange television show. It's absurd that it exists in the first place. So The Rehearsal is coming out weekly. I think it's Sundays. That's normally HBO's big release day, so I'm going to guess it's then. But HBO Max, The Rehearsal is my endorsement.
Well, Jeanette, if people want to find out more about you, are you on social media anywhere?
I am on social media. Yeah, I'm on Instagram and Twitter, JY Godoy Director.
Well, if you guys have any questions, want to send us something to pass on to Jeanette, have any thoughts on babies having back or anything, email us, justshootitpod@gmail.com. Or you can tweet at us at justshootitpod. And you can find me. I'm on Instagram also. I'm at @OKaplan. On Twitter, I am at SmiteyPyleg.
And I'm at Mr. Matt Enlow across all social media. The show's at Just Shoot It Pod across all social media. Tweet at us there. And give our editor, Noah, a follow on TikTok at Noah Bayshore, or on Instagram as well. This episode was edited by Noah Bayshore. Thanks, Noah. And you're listening to music provided by the Free Music Archive and the artist Jazar. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.